like to thank each of you for taking time on a really, really cold and rainy January night to be in this room to discuss some things that are dear to the heart of every single person in the room, and that's our children and our children's education. So thank you for being here this evening. We've got a full program, so we want to honor your time so that we can get everything done. My name is Rosemary Townsend, and I'll serve as your moderator tonight. Let me give you a real brief overview of what our schedule will be for this evening, and we'll just get started right away. The first thing we'll do is hear from the president of the Waco Independent School District School Board, Mr. Pat Atkins. After that, Dr. Kane, the superintendent of the school district, will speak. And then we will have a good bit of time for you to ask questions. And as we get a little bit closer to that part of the program, I'll give you some very specific instructions about how we'll go about that process. And we will end up with audience suggestions and closing comments, and then we'll all go home to our warm houses. So thank you very much for being here, and if you'll join me please in welcoming Pat Atkins, President of the School Board.
I didn't walk off with my mic.
Yeah.
Good evening. First of all, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, let me welcome you all here this evening and join Rosemary. And this is very humbling to see this many people turn out, not only on a cold and rainy night, but on the night of the national championship game between Bama and LSU. And to that end, 45 minutes from now, when we get close to kickoff, you're all still here. You can't get up and leave in the middle of this. You need to stay here with us till the end. But we will move the program along. Let me give you a little background on where we are and how we got to this point. Back in September, the administration hired a consultant who presented the board with this demographic study, which is full of maps and charts on every campus, every neighborhood, down to every planning unit in the community of the city of Waco and Waco ISD. And they began to look at different consolidation options. Nobody wants to be here. The board did not enter this process and didn't hire a new superintendent with the intent of beginning to close schools and inconvenience families in this community. Instead, after the last legislative session, we learned that we were losing right at $4 million one year, $4.2 million the following year. We've already made certain cuts. The administration's put in some budget cuts from 2 years ago. But we're still looking at a $3.5 million budget shortfall this coming school year. If we want to give raises, and for those of you who don't know, every teacher, every employee in the district got absolutely no raise this year over what they made last year. If we want to give raises of even $1,000, that's probably another $1 million we're going to have to find. And so we may be looking at budget cuts next fall of up to $4.5 million. When the administration presented this initial report, the board had spent a great deal of time poring over that in a great deal of detail and asked for additional information. And so the administration provided additional information in October, again in November, again in December. We then received reports from all 3 high school principals looking at different consolidation proposals. All of that was simply done to get us to a starting point. And I emphasized this last week over at Waco High. I want to emphasize it again tonight, because I think it's very important that everybody in this room understand. No decisions have been made. The administration came up so far with proposal A, B, C, C revised, D, and E. We've taken 2 of those and at least got enough consensus among the board that we were willing to bring those out to the community to begin this dialogue. But we're not wed to either one of these 2 plans. We really need to hear what your thoughts are as we begin to move forward. I've been on this board for almost 10 years, and one of the things that's always been important to the Waco ISD School Board is that we get meaningful public input. Whether it's defining the qualities and characteristics we were looking for in our superintendent, or whether it's helping us define the scope of the bond issue, we have always held numerous town hall meetings. We're now beginning to use other online formats to get input. We specifically asked administration to schedule these meetings right after the first of the year so that the input we received last week and this week can be taken into account when we make these decisions. Any decisions regarding school closures or school consolidations will not be made until the end of February. And then after that, we'll begin a process of looking at attendance zones so that this spring, every parent will know where their child will be in school next fall. That's the timeline we're looking at. This is not a dog and pony show. We really want to hear what you have to say. This is information we're really going to use. Having said that, I emphasized this last week. The fact that we're listening, we're going to get conflicting input from folks. And we can't give everybody everything they want. And that doesn't mean we haven't heard you, but at the end of the day, there's 7 trustees that are going to have to make this decision. And chances are we're not going to have unanimous agreement. And we've got to make this decision in the context of a bigger picture, which is our budget of about $130 million a year, which includes salaries, instructional programs, and facilities. And what we don't cut from facilities are going to have to come out of either salaries or the instructional programs. Because those are the 3 areas where we spend our money. And we don't want to lay off teachers. We want, in fact, to keep the staff we have and give them raises next year and continue to fund those instructional programs, which really leaves us no choice but to look at facilities. 2 last thoughts. Number 1, somebody asked, what sort of information are we looking for? You're going to have an opportunity to give us input on other proposals, other things you may have thought of that maybe we've overlooked that need to be taken into account, so the administration has time to run those numbers and see if those are possible solutions. The other input that would be helpful, when we're talking about a particular consolidation, if you know there's something specific that we need to factor into and to take into account to ensure that that consolidation is successful at that campus, we need to know that. We've gotten a lot of input like that from small groups and different neighborhood associations. Lastly, if you have other ideas on budget savings, we'd like to hear that as well. Here's the last thing I have. A number of us on this board have talked for several years that one of the things that has held Waco ISD back for the last 6 to 8 years has frankly been apathy in our community. Nobody holds us accountable, which makes decision-making easy because you're making decisions in an empty boardroom and in a vacuum. But we don't necessarily have all the information we need when we do that. And so, please give us your thoughts. Give us your input. This is a real process where we're trying to take into account all the varying viewpoints so that we can make the best decision possible. So thank you for coming out tonight, and thank you for sharing your thoughts to help us make the best possible decision in a very difficult situation. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. At this time, Dr. Bonnie Kane will come up and speak to us. So, Bonnie?
Let me kind of scoot over this way. And just to reaffirm what Mr. Atkins said about taking input and the board not having its mind made up, I can't tell you how many calls I got from board members since the last meeting about, would it be possible this? What about the idea of? So this is very serious to them, and actually, this is very helpful. For example, we had this presented, and it has a plan, and it's got a lot of things that go with it. So if you have ideas, this really helps. This is not just a suggestion. This is, here's the positives, here's the negatives. And that helps. The board takes that input. A lengthy 80-second legislative session lasting into the summer created a chain reaction resulting in school districts not getting working budget numbers in a timely manner. In August, the WISD Board of Trustees adopted a 2011-12 budget that spent $2.9 million from the reserve fund. WISD budget numbers for this next school year require $3.5 million in budget cuts and cost avoidance measures above what has already been cut over the past few years. $3.4 million will offset the loss of the federal education job bill for the second year of the biennium, makes up for the loss of state funding, and provides a balanced budget. Even before the adjournment of our last legislative session, lawmakers said when they next meet in 2013, they face another massive revenue shortfall. This will cause even more public education budget reductions. WISD must deal with next year's reduced funding and prepare for those future budget cuts. In addition to direct budget cuts, legislators did little to equalize WISD's footing with surrounding school districts. Texas legislatures did not address the inadequate and inequitable school funding system they designed a few years ago. There are 1,034 public school districts in Texas. Lined up as a train, financially, WISD is the front car of the last half of the train when it comes to the insolvency of all public school districts in Texas. Without legislative action, the public school financial picture will continue to decline, necessitating difficult reductions in staffing and programming. What is ADA? ADA stands for Average Daily Attendance, counting the days a student is physically present in school. School districts must have accurate enrollment and attendance data. Attendance matters. Our enrollment is 15,304 students. You'll also hear us talk about WADA. WADA is the weighted average daily attendance. It is a mathematical calculation applied to ADA. Program weights are added to ADA to account for the increased cost of educating students who need bilingual, GP, or other special programming. So our WADA is 18,290. That is because if a student is classified as special ed, they may be weighted 1.2. If they're classified GT, they may be weighted 1.1. If they're economically disadvantaged, it may be 1.15. So you get those weights for your students. So we are funded as if we have 18,290 students. That is because the legislature wanted to make everything equal. That if you had students who had more needs, then you got more money. So that if you had a school district with students who didn't have those needs, it would be equal because those students cost more. You can compare that to a family with two children. You have an 18-year-old and a 10-year-old. Both need to be fed, but the 18-year-old requires more food because of nutritional needs and size. Therefore, a higher proportion of the family grocery budget goes to that student, child. Even though she is only one person, her portion of the grocery bill weighs more than the 10-year-old. A student with special needs or special circumstances gets more weight than one without special needs or circumstances. WADA is the state's good intention for equalizing funding. Target revenue, the amount of dollars the state targets each student WADA point, is what is disproportionate. If total target revenue amounts were equal for WADA across the state, school funding would be equitable. Since funding is not equal, by living in Texas, the richness of any child's educational funding is dictated by where that child lives. For example, in Waco, a student per WADA gets $5,090. China Spring, $5,211, on down to Midway, which is $5,926. And you can see that that's a difference, but it doesn't look like a whole lot of money until you see how it's applied district-wide. China Spring, if Waco ISD got what student in China Spring receives, which is $121 difference, we would get $2,213,695 more dollars got the same amount of money per student that Midway gets, we would have $15,294,620 more dollars. And we wonder sometimes why we can't be competitive with Midway. We don't get the kind of money that Midway gets. And that's why when we talk about a school district, school funding being disproportionate and unequal and inadequate, that's what we're talking about. Because there's no logic for why, if you live on this side of the Midway line, you get this much. If you live on this side of the Midway line, you get different. That's what the problem is. So our revenue, as our property values go up, money the state sends to the district decreases. When the state intended to equalize funding, that's exactly what they did. They said, here's how much money you get. If your taxes bring in more money than that, you send that extra money to the state. If your taxes bring in less money than that, we'll send you the money to make it up. That's a good plan if everybody's getting the same water. So how can we generate additional funding directly? Well, more students generate more funds. For the foreseeable future, our population is projected to remain relatively stable or slightly declining. This is Waco ISD's enrollment from 1993. It peaked, 1996-97 to 16,170 students. And then it goes out to 2010. And our projections until the year 2020, it looks very stable. It's just kind of a little, slightly moving up. Are there other ways to generate funding? Our property values generate more local funds if property values increase, but historically, our property values only slightly increase. However, the state will not allow the WISD Board of Trustees to raise the current tax rate without a successful tax ratification election from voters. And this talks about what a tax ratification election would provide. It would result in an additional $4,461,000 for students. You have to conduct it on a certain number of days after the day the tax rate is adopted. And basically, if your home is $75,000, it's about $84 per year per home, or about $7 per month. And that doesn't seem like a lot of money, but this is not the climate that you would go out and ask taxpayers if they'd be willing to tax themselves at a higher rate. But that is an additional source of revenue. At one time, the school board could raise taxes if they wanted to, but the state took that away from them. The word Waco Independent School District, the word independent doesn't quite mean what it did at one time. As each year passes, it seems to mean less. So what we decided to look at was, do we have too many schools? I mean, it's one thing to say we have too many, do we have too many? So we looked at several districts about our size, and we averaged the enrollment, in which the enrollment of all those districts is 16,451, and the average number of schools they have is 23.3. Waco, with 15,300 students, has 30 schools. So that is way above the average. And many of those schools up there are recognized. So what we're asking the community is to decide what proportion of the budget do we want to put in facilities, meaning that we have a lot of small neighborhood schools, or we have a lot of schools that really aren't full. Do we want to put our money in having a first-rate, high-quality staff? Do we want to put our money in having an instructional program that is second to none? And that's what we're seeking tonight. Before this next budget, we want to know, where do you want your money? When we talk about how we have extra money by closing schools, where does that come from? Actually, we don't save money, and even though we tend to use that word, save money, it's a cost avoidance. If we close an elementary school, we avoid spending about $450,000 a year, every year for forever. We obviously need probably the same number of teachers, may could do with one or two fewer because we can consolidate classrooms. But we don't need a principal, we don't need a librarian. In two schools, we had 2 librarians, 2 principals. If we can consolidate those, we just need 1 principal, 1 librarian, maybe 2 counselors. We're not paying each school, obviously, is more, and we avoid costs of $500,000 to $650,000. And a high school is $650,000 to $750,000 per year, every year, if you don't have that school open. Now, obviously, the first year, you don't save as much because you have to make some adjustments. So whenever, I've kind of got ahead of myself here. This slide shows how the board anticipated these funding issues by building larger campuses in the last bond issue. If these plans had not been made, much of this consolidation could not have been done, meaning that necessary budget cuts would have come from staffing or from the instructional program. So why consolidate campuses? Why not cut other areas? It takes a certain amount of money to run a school district. We need a payroll office that gets payroll for over 2,000 employees out twice a month. Do we have too many people in the payroll office? Well, again, you look at comparisons. So we looked at the state average. Each year, we get an AEIS report that gives us these kinds of numbers. In this slide, we're looking at athletics. Do we spend, because athletics is kind of one of those hot topics, everybody thinks you're spending too much money in athletics. The state averages for school districts to spend 2.4% of their budget on athletics. We spend 2.7%. That's close enough, but that does tell us that there is maybe some area there that we can look at. Central administration. The state average is 3.1%. Well, we spend 2.3% of our budget, so that's an area that we know that we can have a certain amount of confidence that we're not too fat in that area. The orange options begins with the recommendation to transition all 5th graders to elementary schools and all 6th through 8th graders to middle school campuses and repurpose Lake Air Intermediate. The benefits of having at least 3 grades per campus are well documented in the literature, especially at the middle school age and for at-risk school populations. This plan would simplify many aspects of administration by having a single set of grade groups at all schools and allows for Lake Air Intermediate to be repurposed for an annual savings of approximately $600,000 per year. The second part of this option is to consolidate Alta Vista Montessori and Lake Waco Montessori programs into a single Montessori program for the Lake Air campus. The Alta Vista Montessori building is facing major structural issues, and both elementary Montessori programs lack the science lab space necessary for the older students attending these campuses. The Lake Air Intermediate campus could be retrofitted for the science lab facilities and provide a single, cohesive campus for the Montessori programs. Our staff development department averages approximately $30,000 per year in Montessori training costs, and obviously having them on one campus, which we do, so those costs as well. Close Sul Ross Elementary and consolidate those students into Bells Hill Elementary and West Avenue Elementary. Sul Ross Elementary was built in 1952 and has all of the challenges associated with a 60-year-old building, including expensive maintenance and attempts to retrofit technology upgrades. Compliance with ADA codes would require the installation of not 1, but 2 elevators, since the existing buildings are detached. The surrounding land uses around Sul Ross Elementary are in transition as Baylor University seeks to link the main campus with the city's urban core. This transition, coupled with the planned widening of I-35, suggests that the commercial value of the Sul Ross parcel is increasing, and the district could likely sell this parcel for future commercial development. Close North Waco Elementary and consolidate those students into Providence Heights, Dean Highland, and Cedar Ridge Elementary Schools. North Waco is the oldest of 6 campuses located within a tight geographic cluster. The student density in this area is not enough to optimally support 6 campuses, so each campus is currently underutilized. By closing North Waco, these students could be redistributed to nearby campuses, and each campus would be more fully and efficiently utilized. Combine the Viking Hills zone and the Mountain View zones into one attendance zone, changing Viking Hills into a pre-K, K-1, IB, PYP program that feeds into a reconfigured Mountain View 2nd to 5th grade. To be clear, Viking Hills would have to be subsumed into Mountain View in order to be accepted by IB International into a Mountain View IB program. While Viking Hills is one of the smallest WISD elementary campuses, we still needed seats to ensure adequate enrollment space for students in the district, as well as students returning from neighboring school districts and from private and charter schools. Combining Viking Hills and Mountain View attendance zones would enable us to enlarge the attendance zone for the IB program, making it more of an academic attractor. These schools would operate jointly, sharing one principal and core staff, further reducing costs. While ideally, each campus should have at least 3 grades to optimize parental involvement and to decrease the number of transitions for students, Viking Hills isn't large enough to accommodate 3 grades. We are still working with IB International to iron out details, but this is very doable if the community is willing to think outside the single building school concept. Make Carver a neighborhood middle school with a larger attendance zone. Financially, Waco ISD can no longer provide transportation to campuses of choice. We must rezone all students and inform parents that students attending magnet schools, Hillcrest, a Montessori school, a middle-level advanced academic development school within a school, must provide their own transportation. Establishing an attendance zone for Carver Middle School will make it a better-use middle school, as currently it is being utilized as only 50% of its 925 student capacity, and the board is already considering having a magnet at Carver and perhaps maybe having a hub. It would be possible and financially affordable if we let the students go to their own school, pick them up as groups and take them to Carver, but we'd have to adjust the times. But we're working on that. Again, the programs aren't worked out. We're just in the planning stage. Consolidate the alternative school campus and the STARS program at the former Doris Miller building. This is an economical utilization of Doris Miller while offering opportunity to integrate staff and share such resources as nursing, maintenance, and other support staff. This would also offer more opportunities for high school electives at that single campus. Close A.J. Moore and move the 7 academies to University High School and the JROTC program to Waco High. Waco ISD's capacity for high school students is great, as our high school students are on 3 different campuses, each being underutilized. Placing A.J. Moore at University High School better distributes the capacity burden and does not overload any one campus. Now this map shows the orange option at the elementary level. And this is the map at the middle level. To summarize the orange option, currently the district is at 72% utilization, and we're trying to get it at an 85% utilization. The orange option would make the elementary schools at a 92% utilization rate, the middle school at an 84% utilization rate, and even closing A.J. Moore, the high schools would still just be at a 74% utilization rate, but average would be 85%. The green option begins with the same recommendation to transition all 5th graders to elementary schools and all 6th through 8th graders to middle school campuses and repurpose Lake Air. In this option, we would close Viking Hills Elementary and consolidate those students into Mountain View and Parkdale. Viking Hills is the smallest elementary campus in WISD with a capacity of 308 students. This makes it one of the most expensive campuses to operate per student given the fixed costs associated with any size campus. The Viking Hills attendance zone contains approximately 150 resident elementary students and an additional approximate 100 student transfers. Thus, the population density residing in the Viking Hills attendance zone does not support even the smallest elementary school. These 150 or so resident students can easily be accommodated in Mountain View and Parkdale. And this plan includes closing Sul Ross Elementary and consolidating those students into Bells Hill Elementary and into West Avenue Elementary. It also includes closing North Waco and consolidating those students into Providence Heights, Dean Highland, and Cedar Ridge. It includes making Carver a neighborhood middle school campus with a much larger attendance zone. It also consolidates the alternative school campus and the STARS program at the former Doris Miller building. It also closes A.J. Moore and moves the 7 academies to University High School and the JROTC program to Waco High. It closes the Lake Waco Montessori, moving the entire Montessori program into a single Montessori program on the Lake Air campus. But another difference here is it makes the Alta Vista a neighborhood school, moving the entire Montessori program to Lake Air. It closes Meadowbrook and consolidates those students at Alta Vista. Meadowbrook was built in 1956 and has a capacity of 374. Because of age, the campus has ongoing structural problems, floodplain ramifications, potential bridge, and other issues. So that would make it Alta Vista neighborhood school with an attendance zone. And this map shows the elementary zones associated with the green option. And this is the middle schools in the green option. To summarize the green option, we're currently at a 72% utilization. The green option, the elementary would be at a 93% utilization rate. The middle school would be at 84%. High schools would be at 74%, and the green option in total is 86%. Our bottom line, our vision is for Waco ISD to be the district of choice for generations of families. Our mission is for WISD to be perceived as having a safe learning environment and to be recognized for its high academic achievement. And our goal is for you to support efficient and effective utilization of WISD's limited resources by helping us make tough but necessary decisions. This is a list of the town hall meetings that I'd like to leave up there if you don't mind. And I thank you for your attention to the presentation, and I think we're about to answer questions that you have.
All right. Sure. I'm sorry, Pat.
Is it on? I missed a couple of board members in the audience. We do have a quorum present, and this is posted under the Open Meetings Act, so we can't have a quorum present. But because I've now got more than 4 board members here, I will call to order this meeting of the Waco ISD Board of Trustees. We do have a quorum present, and move on to item 3A, which will be the public input on the public forum on consolidation and school closing options. Before we do that, I do want to introduce the board members who are here, because we have a number of them here. Norman Manning is seated over here. Right behind him is Alex Williams. There you go, Alex. Sitting next to Alex is Alan Sykes. Larry Pettis is down here in front. Carrie Dupuy is back in the back. There. Is that everyone? Is Angela here? We've got 6 of your 7 trustees here this evening. Thank you.
Okay. We'll go ahead and start now with the questions. But I would like to give you all a couple of ground rules before we begin. very, very fortunate to live in a country where we have the freedom and the very great privilege of expressing our opinion and asking questions. We would ask that this be a cordial conversation. We're all here because we dearly love and care for our children and their education. So let's keep the conversation cordial and friendly. What we'd like for you to do is to line up behind the mic over here if you have a question that you'd like to pose. We would like that people would please limit themselves to one question at a time, and then if you have another question that you would like to ask, you're more than welcome to go to the end of the line, and then when the others have had their opportunities to speak, then you can move forward. Yes, sir. Okay, we're going to have two different opportunities. We're going to spend about 45, 50 minutes asking questions. Then we'll have a brief break. And then after the break, then yes, you are welcome to follow the same procedure and offer your suggestions to the board. So that will be the final part of the program. But thank you very much for those comments, and we will have an opportunity to do that. So if you've got questions, you can line up over here behind the mic, and if you'll go back towards this column, Kim will be your mic attendant and will help you with instructions, and Annette is our timekeeper. I will tell you that we're going to have a timekeeper card, and she'll let us know how much time we've got left on those questions. Okay, a couple of important things for you all to know as those questions are coming forward. We do have scribes here, so they will be taking notes. So we're certain that everybody will have their question registered so that the board will know the questions that were asked and also the responses to those questions. Not everybody in the world likes to get up in front of a large crowd and pose a question. If you fall in that camp, it's okay. There are a number of ways that you can express your opinion. Outside, when you signed in, there were cards, and you can pose your question on those cards, and we can get them to the speaker. In addition to that, there is an opportunity on the Waco ISD website for you to pose questions or suggestions on the website. So there are multiple ways to do that. There's a brave soul. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is LaTanya Henderson. I'm back. I'm a parent of a child at Agent Academy, 2 at Kendrick Elementary, and 1 at University Middle School. And I promise this is the only question that I'll have tonight because I know I asked a lot last time. My question is, I remember from the last meeting that you made a comment about that, jokingly, that someone had asked you about if one of the properties that you were closing was to come for sale, would you sell? My question is, I guess then, how much is Agent War property worth if it was closed? Would you know that?
No, actually, I wouldn't. The reason I talk about it, because people want to know what would you do with the property, any property. What we do with the property is actually disassociated with the decision. I don't want anyone to think that we would close a building because we could sell it and make more than another building. There Because
Would you still know how much it's worth? I mean, because it is
I'm
a
gonna guess, but
downtown property. I know that Waco, the city hall is trying to build up downtown Waco renovated, so that's, I'm wondering how much is that property worth since all of the improvements are trying to be made downtown Waco?
Unfortunately, for school districts, we can't put a price. Here's how, when we do have property for sale. This is why it doesn't matter what we say to it. Either the board or I would go to the board and I would say, board, we have some surplus property that we would like to sell. The board puts if they agree with me, they put a base amount and says, we will not accept anything less than X. Then, we set a bid date and then close bids. Everybody who wants to buy and have money, cash. We don't do loans. We don't even accept loans. Cash. They say, this is what I'm going to bid. And one day we open all those bids and we take the highest bid. So that's why we really don't look at how much it is right now.
So basically, it's more of a bidding process.
It's a closed bid process. And the board would just put in a baseline limit. Now let's say they put in, we weren't thinking anything less than $1 million or something, and no bid was over $1 million, then that's our property. Either they lower the bid and we go out and start all over, but they cannot just say, someone come up to me and say, hey, I'd like to buy this for X amount of money, because that's not how we sell property, that's illegal.
Thank you.
I don't see any separation of figures for transportation, and I'm not sure how the transportation to the A.J. Moore High School goes. Does Waco ISD provide transportation buses?
Yes, we do.
So then gathering all those people up and transporting them all the way out to university has been a cost that has been estimated.
It's already a magnet school. A.J. Moore is not in the zone.
So how do you provide transportation? I don't have anyone.
It is provided by our transportation system, but in a zone school, it is going to cost more. Actually, the outright savings is more than 1%. So we take out what we think the additional investment. One cost of closing schools is, unlike now, in a magnet school, it's different because if all the kids are coming from all over going to one place, it really doesn't matter. Just pick them all up and go to another place. As a zone school, though, if all these kids are tightly here and you close it, you go here, 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 that would cost more. So yes, there are additional transportation costs for this plan. I mean, for consolidated schools.
Okay, and so does one plan outweigh the other as far as those costs?
I wouldn't. Okay, well, when you look at in the green plan, I don't think it's significant. I really don't. Now, one of them obviously is 86%, which is different from 85%, and that's a big difference on a $110 million budget. But of course, it would probably get to 87, 88, 89. It's not like that's our goal. But there are some costs associated with consolidated schools now, but then it's offset by the other costs.
Hello, I'm Robert Aguilar. I live right here on Conner University. Have they made a decision on Viking Hills?
No, sir.
Well, rumor has it that Viking Hills residents are lobbying very hard, and they have at least 3 votes on the board already because they want to keep it open. And I'm concerned about that. If that's true. I know that the orange thing says plan said let's keep it open. How many people does Viking House, children does Viking House have right now?
What I said, 150 resident students.
Resident students?
And then there's about 100 that come in.
Oh.
That choose to go there.
But the enrollment is 125, right? Wasn't that the same thing as Wiley and East Waco when it was closed? Wasn't that the decision made that they didn't have enough resident students to justify school, that they were busing in 150 kids from 9 9th Street. Wasn't that the decision that was used to close Poly and East Waco?
I have to comment, but I wasn't here when Molly happened, so I might have to.
Does anybody remember that?
Somebody.
That was the reason why it was closed. And if that precedent's been set for a minority exclusion, it also be set for Viking. What I'm trying to point out is everybody has to make a sacrifice. And South Waco willing to do that. But so does everybody else. The burden shouldn't just fall on the low-income areas. And that's my comment.
We want to get your comments down so we can make certain they're on our website. And also, I have been at every board meeting where this has been discussed. Every board meeting, and Mr. Atkins has been very careful to make certain that there are not votes, that no decision has been made. If there has, we wouldn't have.
Well, the formal decision and informal. And informal. Some decisions are formal and some decisions are informal. I'm in politics. I've lived there all my life. And the politics right now are very heavy and Viking Hills pushing it. And the reason is a neighborhood keeps up your real estate prices, right? Your housing prices. It's convenient to take the kids to. And it makes for easier sales. Somebody comes into East System and say, well, where can I take my child to school? Well, you buy Viking Hills. It has an elementary there. Well, you know, we have the same need in South Waco and North Waco. That's the point I'm trying to make. But the informal politics is going on right now. And we're well aware of it. I'm sure a lot of people here are aware of it. What you need from me?
I'm Shauna Sibley. I have a child at AJ, or did have a child at AJ Moore that's graduated. I guess my question is regarding the first question. If somebody didn't know the procedure to go through to want to buy one of our schools, the property the school sits on, I would like to know, has the school district, has the school board members, have they been approached by anybody to buy any of our properties at this point?
At a board meeting?
Not at a board meeting, anywhere.
Well, first of all, I mean, I can only answer for myself. And if any board member if someone talks to a board member, they are not a board member when they're not at a board meeting. Okay? And I would hope, and I would think if someone came up and said, hey, how do we sell property? I mean, how do we buy property? That they would tell them what I just said. Here's how you buy our property.
Let's hope that they would. It's a rumor that I thought was just a rumor, but it keeps coming back and keeps coming back. Has any of the school board members, even outside of the board member, been approached? Have you been approached? Has anybody downtown been approached saying, hey, we're interested in this property? Has AJ Moore been one of those schools?
The reason that, okay, I made the recommendations. I made, like Mr. Atkins said, plan A, B, C, C, for you guys and all those plans. I'm the one making the recommendations to the board. So if anyone was making recommendations based on wink, wink, we can sell this, it would be me, okay? And I can tell you that no one has talked to me about we sure would like to buy the AJ Moore building. There's a lot of speculation that it's already sold and there's all kinds of things. I would think I would be the one that someone would contact and say, hey, we sure would like to buy this building. Now, I will say, after one of the board meetings, a gentleman was there and he said, oh, I'm with the Dwyer Group, we're next door to that. But it was more like, I said, oh, well, how are you doing? Oh, we're doing good neighbors. So it's not even if we sold it, the money would be used so quickly to either pay off debt or put a wing on it, Cesar Chavez, which is too small, or to put a wing on it. I'm not saying that this is my recommendation at Providence Heights, so maybe we could close Brook Avenue and do something there. It's not like that the money we would get is, it would be school district money. It could be, we could buy down debt. I don't think it would be a little tax rate on it. But it's not, the idea behind this is not because we think we can make money. Is that what you're feeling? That we think there's...
Well, both the options that
think Baylor would want the AJ Moore. I can see Baylor want some other property, but that's some property. But I don't know if Baylor does or not. But I would think they'd contact me, because here's if we put money on the agenda, put items on the agenda. Either I can put something on the agenda, the board president can, or 2 or 3 board members. The president hasn't talked to me. I got 30 seconds. 2 or 3 board members would have to be at a board meeting, so that conversation has not happened. But I would, if I had more time, I would talk to you about the why AJ Moore's on both plans.
Thank you.
So let's move on and come back.
My name is Patty Harper, and I'm a taxpayer as well as a WSD employee. I'm at a campus that is scheduled to close at the end of the year due to that we're straining the budget, which I totally understand. My question is, does it concern that? My question is, last week at the meeting, I understood that closing the schools did not mean that employees, teachers, mostly teachers, would not lose their jobs. What is the board and your plan in consolidating these schools? Will teachers be doubled up in classrooms, since Cedar Ridge is full and some of these elementary schools are already at capacity? Base is at Cedar Ridge. Would you move the base program away from Cedar Ridge to free up that classroom? My ultimate question is, where would all of these teachers from these elementary schools that you're closing go?
Actually, what's my clicker name? Here we go. Even closing the most austere of these recommendations, our elementaries are still at 93% utilization. So what that means is, even if we close Silver, even if we close North Waco, even if this one includes Alta Vista, we still have 7% of our space left. When our students move, teachers move with them, and I don't mean literally, I'm moving here because my kids are here. I'm saying the number of kids and the number of teachers will not change. As this will happen over the summer, and we have a certain number of teachers leaving, I do not see any, this will be done through attrition if there are any excess teaching units. So I'm not worried about that at all. Every teacher, now they may not be the campus that they were at. In fact, we have a procedure in place for that, of asking them preferences.
Well, has it been talked about that possibly, since some of the first grade teachers have been overwhelmed this year with some of the new programs that have been implemented, that you might double up 2 first grade teachers to 1 classroom if you're going to put more, for instance, first grade classes?
First of all, I'm not certain what first grade programs were put in. And our executive director for elementary ed is saying no new first grade program was put in. But no, we don't need to double up because we will have plenty of first grade
A
classes.
lot of the aides have been cut out of some of the schools. So some of the first grade, some of the schools where there were 2 or 3 first grade teachers had aides that were in now, and some of them have lost their aides. So would you put?
But that doesn't have anything to do with consolidation. That was because we didn't have enough, was it special ed classes? But no one lost their job because of not having a job. I mean, people may have lost their job for another reason, but we just didn't say, oh, we don't want you here anymore. Sometimes if a teacher, aides are assigned to a certain group of kids, if the kids go over here, we send the aide over there. So I don't think I'm answering your question, but I'm trying.
Yeah, because I just was not sure where the teachers from the schools that you're going to close would go.
We have plenty of room for them. They will have a place, and they will even have some empty classrooms around them.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm Xavier. I'm a graduate from AJ Moore. The main concern I have is that it's important for the board to consult the youth about the idea of consolidating AJ Moore with the other high schools, because although there are technicalities to it, statistics such as money and attendance, I feel that there is more to it than that. In in a more abstract sense, that it's not just about teaching and statistics and learning. I feel like the students, how the students feel about the consolidation also plays a big factor in how this whole ordeal can turn out, because how a student feels about their school and the environment and the relationships that they build also play a factor in how well they do in school, how willing they are to attend school, how much they enjoy being there and learning. Because while you do learn, you also build a relationship with students and teachers. And I would say that that is one thing that I really gained from attending A.J. Moore, because it is a smaller high school. I really felt like I was close with my classmates, and I did enjoy going to school because of that. And I feel it's very important that you consult the youth. Again, make proactive steps to see how the students at university feel about this, how the students of University High feel about this, how the students of A.J. Moore feel about this. It's true that there is a responsibility on our part, such as James, he's submitted the proposals, the blue proposal. I do feel that there is a responsibility on our behalf, but some students may not understand that they do have a voice, that their opinion does matter. And I feel that the board should also take proactive steps to consult the kids, to hear what they have to say. It could be something as simple as just a poll. It could be a free ride, how to feel about consolidating A.J. Moore with Waco High and University. Because, like I said, some students may not be happy about that, and that could lower their morale. And so, I feel it's important to hear their voice and respond to it.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate hearing your voice.
Thank you.
I'm James Rocket. I helped with the help of Dr. Naka Davis write that blue proposal. And my question is I know there were talks in October for a new bond issue election. I was wondering if those talks are still going on.
I think ultimately, depending on the consolidation and how far that goes in these schools, again, no one wants to do this. Let's say we make it through the $3.41 million we get through this year, and the state legislature decides to equalize funding. Okay, our plans now would be different if funding is changed and we have more money. We wouldn't go out and close more schools. Or if funding gets worse, we may be looking at we need to close more schools. So I think obviously Kendrick and Meadowbrook need to be replaced. I feel like University Middle School needs to be replaced. All this because of age. Well, that would require a bond issue. But and we need more technology. That's, it wouldn't hurt to have about $4 or $5 million in technology upgrades and some infrastructure. So yes, I think there will be a bond issue, and I think it will be modest.
I just find it hard to imagine the taxpayers are going to vote for another bond issue ever in favor of Waco ISD, either with the green or orange plan go through, considering it's consolidating A.J. Moore Academy into university, when just past 2009 meeting, the board approved up to $4.5 million in renovations in A.J. Moore that has already been spent. And I don't want to name the board members that are still in office from that vote, but the truth is, these are the people that approved that $4.5 million that's going to waste now if these plans get passed.
Sometimes I don't think my mind works. I think somebody's got a kill switch or whatever. Sometimes, like for instance, when your car breaks down or you have car repairs, there comes a point in time for all of us that we go, do I put some more money in my car? Or do I buy a new one? Do I go ahead and put in maybe $2,000 or $3,000 and then something else breaks? And it's hard to know that. Boards do not know. If you look back when the discussion starts about a bond issue, we're still working in the bond issue. It had to pass. I don't know how far back the planning was, but Texas school funding has changed. There was a time that Waco ISD had money, okay? And I thought the board showed a lot of insight by making buildings bigger, by looking at those kinds of things. I don't think anyone And so I think, and it wasn't, this target revenue just being disequal has not been as bad as it is now. So I was not here, but that's not concerning me because I look at the timeline with the state legislature and I think that's one of those unfortunate things. And if you shouldn't have replaced the engine, you should have bought a new car then. But also I just want to tell you, your blue plan is kind of taking some traction. I'm hearing it around town and people are really talking about it. So you've been more successful than I was in talking about Carver going into A.J. Moore.
I just find it hard for the taxpayers and voters to trust our board at all when four of them were there back then. Even though they would understand the circumstance that would happen now, they would even consider these plans up now that would waste that $4.5 million and not look for the other alternative like you originally proposed in October for Carver to go into A.J. Moore Academy.
Okay, well, without being argumentative, one, I see approaching your mic there.
Okay, I didn't see that.
James, you need to be sure to form a question and not express your opinion.
I started with the question about this or talks about bond issue.
Hello, I'm Autumn, and I'm a senior from A.J. Moore, and I also talk about the Carver proposal that you came up with in October. It was turned down, right, because parents weren't comfortable with their kids going into the...
Right, the 6th, 7th, 8th grade being with A.J. Moore.
Yes, I was wondering if it would matter at all if our students and our parents stood up and said they weren't comfortable with their kids going into university or Waco High. Does that matter at all? If they, maybe thrown out the window?
I think everything matters. I think that's why you've got 6 board members here, and that's why I know Ms. Detail is going to read every one of the comments, is because they want to hear that. I mean, that is the whole idea of this. The board represents this community, the kids, the parents. They need to act fiscally responsible, and they need to represent what they feel like what is best, and that's why they are here. And that is a tough decision. I mean, let's say you're a board member and there's 100 people in the community and 50 of them say to you, look, you are an idiot if you don't do plan A. And 50 more come up and say, you are going to be an idiot, I'm going to vote for you if you don't do plan B. What do you do? So then they have to weigh the kind of options that they have and what they think. I think there is a valid argument for what you're saying, that your parents may not want you to go to university, just like the Carver parents, as they were talking to them and saying, I don't want my child to go to A.J. Moore. The board members saying, we don't want to do any one of them, but we can't do both because we have a rich program. I mean, it is more expensive at A.J. Moore. I mean, that's kind of like Viking Hills. A.J. Moore is to the high schools, what Viking Hills is to the other elementary schools. It's a small program and it costs more money. And it was really nice when we were able to afford it. So, but because of funding, they have to make some tough decisions. Now, they could keep all 3 high schools and close a middle school and probably 3 more elementary schools and make them all be private. So we could keep A.J. Moore. But then a lot of those elementary parents would say, I don't want my kids cried up. That's their dilemma. And so there's really not a bad guy in this story, including you, because you have a good point.
Thank you.
And I thank you for coming up.
My name is Jennifer Duncan, and I'm going to speak to you today and ask you a question about excellence. I think that one of the things that Waco ISD needs to stand for is the things that are already working well in the district. I'm really glad to hear, I'm really glad to see all the A.J. Moore people here. And I want to tell you that, well, actually, I want to ask you, so high schools, right? Which ones are acceptable?
A.J. Moore.
Yes. So actually, we should be looking at them and figuring out how they can help the other 2 high schools. Should we not?
Well, it would be nice if they were all the same size and we could decide who goes where. But yes, I don't think we could get that many more students at A.J. Moore. But go ahead, this is your question.
Well, I mean, my concern is that they're essentially being shuffled because they're small, and that maybe is the exact opposite of what we should be doing. In our middle schools, which ones are acceptable?
Carver.
And yet Carver, again, is being shuffled or being discussed as being uninformed as a magnet school. And I think we should be looking at them and figuring out what's wrong with our other middle schools, which we all love, right? We all love the schools we went to, but why are, as parents, are we allowing unacceptable schools to continue? And then I would have to ask, what are our acceptable, let's say, recognized exemplary, where we finally have recognized exemplary schools in the elementary program? And you don't have to give me a list, because it's a longer list, thank goodness. We have a lot of success in elementary, and we have to be building on success. If you close schools that are successful, that, as someone pointed out, is a reason why people buy property, a reason why people come to Waco, a reason why they don't move straight to Woodway or Midway or China Spring or send their kids to private school, that would be the opposite of what we need to be doing now, in my opinion.
And if I may, respectfully, you're right. Viking Hills is a recognized campus. And it,
Not just Viking Hills, but
I mean,
yes, I understand that that is one of the issues.
but it's got 203 students. We've got Crested, and they would say to you, give me 203 students and I'll be recognized.
I don't know if that's actually true, but I do know that it would be foolish to take a recognized school program and say, well, your facilities cost us more money, and so we'll take your students and we'll put them, you know, and I mean, I know Rockdale is great too, and so is Mountain View, but why are we disadvantaging, why are we in fact punishing schools that do the best job? And I think if you wanted to feel like emails, they would still be recognized for exemplary every year.
Hi, I'm Kirk County, part of the advisory board. I'm speaking on behalf of the advisory board. Well, this mic is low. I guess I'm just too tall. Okay, you were showing a slide earlier. It looks like the problem that we're having while we're having this discussion, because our Texas legislators failed us this last session, and that they need some adapting to the way they fund our public education. What would you suggest our legislators do so we don't have this problem? Because I know this is a statewide issue, not just here in Waco. Can you maybe explain what maybe our next representative can do to make this so it doesn't happen again?
Sir, I can't tell you how happy actually, the water system is a good system, because what this does, it does equalize. That is what needs to happen. We're not asking that Midway get fewer dollars. We are all for that $5,926, because that's actually what it takes for a district to have that kind of money to do those kinds of things to be exemplary. We're a check mark for that. We just don't understand why Waco, China Spring, Hillsborough, McGregor, Vega, Robinson, and Belton can't have that same funding. We are all for the targeted revenue, but everybody's target needs to be the same.
But again, I'm very disappointed. Again, this is our Texas legislator that came down from this impropriety why Waco High is the low horizontal totem pole and Midway is the high. It's because it came down from Austin, or up from Austin, should I say.
Right. We were assigned a target revenue amount. Yes, sir.
And then part two of my question was, is because you got the budget so late, you said, was the other part why we're in this?
Well, we went in our reserve fund,
Right.
$2.8 million.
Okay, but they still have their rainy day fund analysis.
Yes, they do. But
Okay.
we had to die. Yes, sir.
Exactly.
Thank you.
My name is Rosalba Rockman, and I have two of my kids who live in Meadowbrook. My question is, Meadowbrook is this really small school, which I love it. I know that pre-K they actually went to South Waco, and I can see a big difference. South Waco is a larger school. I don't know how the Vista is, but my concern is that I know in South Waco I can walk in there and the teachers, they know my kids by name. So my concern is, what tells me that that's going to happen in the other school? Are they going to get the same one-on-one attention that they currently get from their teachers? That's my concern.
The classroom itself should not change. We love to have, lower than a 22-to-1 ratio. But again, we get back to the same issue. But right now, we don't look at Meadowbrook because it's a small school and South Lake because it's a large school and say, well, Meadowbrook, you can have small classes and South Lake is going to have big classes. We have the same 23-to-1 ratio for all the elementary schools. Now, some classes may have 21 and this one has 23, but I don't think you're going to find that much difference in any campus. But regardless of where your child is, your teacher should know your child, your school nurse should know your child, everybody should know your child, and you should feel like your child is very special in that school, and you should help us see to it that that is happening in every classroom.
Yeah, and I mean, that's just one of my concerns. You know, because we all love our kids, and we want to make sure they get the best education that they can. And me, as a parent, when I told the principal one day, you know, I love your school, because I see the difference, and I know that we all want all that for our kids, so that's my concern.
I think that's why Waco actually started out building very small schools for the everybody wanted those same things that you want. It's just that now, because of funding, we can't afford to have the smaller schools. And that's what the problem is, and that's why, like, I think if the high school principals, the other two high school principals would probably say, if I had 686 kids, it'd be very different than having 1,400 kids. But we just need to make certain that we can meet every child's needs, and that's what we're trying to do. If it weren't for this funding thing, we wouldn't be having this conversation. It was nice to have small schools like that.
Yeah, I wish you could keep it, but okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I'm glad you like Meadowbrook because I hear a lot of positive things about it.
My name is Daisy Gonzalez, and I went to Meadowbrook Elementary. And we're located right now in this. My son is due to go to Meadowbrook Elementary, and I would want him to go there. But as far as the city of Beverly Hills, that is the only school that we have in our little city. We pay taxes for that. Do we need to go to the city of Beverly Hills to help us out to keep our school there?
Actually, you pay city taxes to the city of Beverly Hills because you live there and they do the city water and the city stuff. You pay school district taxes to Waco ISD, and the board represents you here.
But the school is the only one located there. You could talk about a bridge that the school has. Has there been any improvement going towards that school in the last, couple of years to help improve it? What are the students that have to cross that bridge, right? Because you said it was old. What are they supposed to do when they have to go to Alta Vista? I mean, there's no, how do I put it? That community, our kids can walk, and there's not that much transportation that needs to be provided for people to go there. What would we have to do?
If you live within the 2-mile limit, would you live within 2 miles?
I do live within 2 miles, and that's why I would prefer my son to go there. Because of, also not only that, but because of the teachers and everyone that works there.
Would you be living within 2 miles of Alta Vista?
I'm not sure where Alta Vista is. I'm assuming it's.
Would that be the school that if Meadowbrook closed, they would be going to?
It would be the Alta Vista, but is that the one off the Highway 35? So now my kid or someone else's child would have to worry about crossing I-35.
If you live more than 2 miles, then you would be provided transportation. Bus transportation.
Okay, but I understand that we would be provided, but you would save money by allowing the students that go there.
Well, if you look at what it costs to run a small school, and what it costs more in transportation for us to take those children to other schools that would be full, it is less expensive to transport those kids to other schools than it is to keep a lot of small local schools.
But we pay taxes for our kids to go there, so it wouldn't even matter.
Actually, you pay taxes to the school district.
And taxes wouldn't matter for our kids to go there, the ones that we pay.
You pay taxes so your children, or actually so all children, can have free and appropriate education. And that's why we're building larger schools. The larger schools that we build means that the zones get bigger. And that's because if we have too much money in small schools that aren't full, we don't have money for anything else. And that's what we're trying to do, is balance out and find out, is the community okay with, let's have a bunch of small schools. We don't care if teachers don't get raises and they leave. We don't care if the instructional program's not that good. See, it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. If we can get money that we're putting in facilities and put it in a better teaching program, then these other schools will be better, and then other people will be coming back, and then that's what we're trying to turn the district. I mean, there's a lot of people who are unhappy with the district, and the board's trying to see where its money is to see if they can solve that problem, but it's upsetting other people. I mean, it's, but thank you.
We've got time for one more question before we take a short break, and then we'll open up for comments.
My question is real short. Okay, is that better? You had mentioned that somebody from the Dwyer Group had come up after a board meeting and approached you and said, oh, we're right next door. Were they next door to A.J. Moore, or were they next door to Carver?
Well, no, he meant A.J. Moore, not because I said, oh, sometimes I walk around the walk that, what's that called? The University of Carver. I said, I've seen your building, they're kind of on the trees. And I said, what do you guys do? And he started telling me, and
I was just surprised because it was mentioned in the same conversation. As
well,
before.
I
Okay,
could have
that's
had
it.
a child, he could have had a child. I'm not certain why he was there that night. I just assumed everybody was there because they had kids in school.
Why was he there?
I don't know.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, we're going to take a very brief 5-minute break, and when we come back, we can open up for comments. You're more than welcome to come up to the mic so that we'll know how many folks have something that they'd like to say. If you are planning on making a suggestion, or if you have a question to ask, it would help us a bunch if you come over here and get in line, because we want as many of you as possible. I know the way this room is arranged is a little bit different from last week. We'll go ahead and start. So the floor is open either for questions or suggestions.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Miss Rice. I have 2 children. I have one that currently attends university, and I have a youngest that's at Alta Vista. I am really hoping that Alta Vista Montessori program does not get sent over to Lake Air. The Montessori program has really been beneficial to both my children. My oldest is in AP classes because of everything that he's learned. My question earlier, I guess, or my comment is, what would be the estimated cost to repurpose Lake Air to retrofit for the Montessori program versus the expenses to remodel and retrofit at their current location?
I think the difference is that Lake Waco Montessori and Alta Vista both need some renovations and science labs and some things to happen. So taking Lake Air and repurposing it would be one school that's actually in pretty good shape. Lake Waco Montessori and Alta Vista both have other issues, age and aging and technology needs and some other things.
Wasn't it considered for Meadowbrook to possibly move over to Alta Vista? And if so, why couldn't Alta Vista just stay there if it's considered for Meadowbrook to attend there? If you're possibly thinking about doing a redistricting or whatever to allow Meadowbrook students to get moved to Alta Vista, why couldn't Alta Vista Montessori and Lake Waco Montessori kind of balance those 2 neighborhoods out instead of putting them all together? Why couldn't they just balance those areas, especially with all the changes?
Well, I think what you're saying is a plan, and that's why the board
That's all I
And
have.
you have that in your comments.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Haskett, and I have 3 children that attend Waco ISD Montessori. And I guess my question is you had said that some of the elementary schools are underutilized. Do you know exactly what Waco ISD is?
Let me get my iPad.
And also, I do believe that there's a new science lab or some science that Alta Vista has started, and also a technology class.
Ask me your quick, what was I looking at? I'm sorry.
The utilization. The underutilization for Alta Vista.
Oh, actually, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Oh, no, Alta Vista is not on there because it's been eliminated. Mr. Atkins is gonna have to look that up on, current, yeah, how many kids is it? Is it 59%? 69% utilization. That's 69%.
Yes, 69%. What exactly does that entail? Like, is it because we do have the science, because we do have technology? Is it because of
Every building has a capacity. The capacity of this building is 1950. Let's just say a building has a capacity of 1,000 kids. If it has 850 kids in that building, regardless of where they are in the building, they're at 85% capacity. The principal finds a place for them. And that's a break even for the district. So if Alta Vista is at 69% capacity, that means, one, it could have 31% more kids. And if it's got 5 million, you can do the math. And if that was the only school that was at 69%, why would you even be looking at it? But this one's 69%, this one's 72%, this one's 40%. So when you add the whole thing up, we're spending a lot of money on elementary schools that are half full whenever we could close this one and put these kids here, close this one and put these kids here, so we would have that money for the instructional program that we need. So it's not Alta Vista's fault, or it's not that we have science labs. It was built to hold a certain number of kids, and it costs a certain amount of money to hold those kids, and those kids aren't there. And that's why, and it could be, we could close another school and put it at Alta Vista. It's not that it's Alta Vista, it's that when we look at age, when we look at location, when we look at the older a building is, the more it costs us to keep it up. And so we look at those things.
back to the building's old, the age? But why is it that you're wanting, or the proposal is to take Meadowbrook and put them? I mean, I guess I just don't understand that.
That was one of those, that was, the board really struggled when they were looking at the green plan and the orange plan, and I struggled in making recommendations to the board with that, because it's kind of an area that Kendrick's kind of old, Meadowbrook's kind of old, Alta Vista's kind of old. The board did more than what you would think they would, when they were big voter support in such bad economic times, to get as many things changed as possible. I don't think what they took to the board was the end of their needs. I think it was the end of what they thought people would support.
Hello, my name is Autumn, I'm a senior from AJ Moore Academy. And part of the proposal of moving AJ Moore into university to get us to be happier with the decision, you said that all of our staff that we'll use, staff, and we'll have them all here. Is that correct? How is that possible to have 2 custodial staffs, all of our cafeteria ladies, all of our counselors, all of our English teachers, and everyone here at this school?
One, I apologize. I didn't mean all the custodians. I didn't know you were talking about the custodians. The custodians will have jobs. I don't know that they will come with.
They did more all together. We're a family all together. We know everybody. Like it's Washington, or play custodial, and things like that. Like Asian was a family all together. Like, you say that we're going to keep the staff together and make sure you let us know not all the staff is
Okay, well, I apologize. When we talk about a teacher we don't consider a police officer to be A.J. Morris. We have a certain number of police officers, and they're assigned different places. And a lot of times we move them, and I know people tend to like them, you know, and everyone, but we try to balance our instructional focus with these other needs.
What about like our counselors and our office staff? All of our principals here as well on one level, right?
We had intentions of keeping everyone employed, okay? I don't know that everybody who's now getting a paycheck at A.J. Moore will be in a certain section of University County, okay? I don't know that they all will. No, I don't know that.
You said that you don't know if they're going to have their own section, they'll probably be spread out.
It was my understanding from Ms. Meyer that there was, she talked to Mr. Correa, and there was an area that would be mostly A.J. Moore. There will be some exceptions to that, because there's going to be some A.J. Moore students who actually want to take a class that they don't have the opportunity at A.J. Moore, and we're going to let them do that.
Something like sports and stuff like that.
All right.
So pretty much A.J. Moore, like what A.J. Moore is going to fade away, because we're all about academics and not about sports and things like that, because that becomes one of your priorities to get into.
I don't think I'm doing a good job of explaining this. The A.J. Moore academies have to stay together and have to be clearly defined and have the constructs of the academics, of the academies as defined by the national academic and the Steve that we've done so well with. Okay? We are committed to those keeping that identity because it is something we honor and it's something we value. If we don't keep those together, then those good things that happen at A.J. Moore won't continue to happen. And we have absolutely nothing to gain. What we feel that makes A.J. Moore work, that makes a kid like you come out and want to fight for it, is because there are teachers and counselors and principals who create a culture. It's not the brick and mortar, it's the people. And so if we pick up all the people and we move on here, we feel like that would work.
You don't feel that there's more people here that they wouldn't overpower us, rather us overpower them?
I don't think Mr. Correa or Mr. Meyer will let anybody overpower anybody.
I'm Bill Foley, and I'm president of the A.J. Moore Business Advisory Board. And just follow up on what you just said. A.J. Moore is a National Academy Foundation, which has certain rules and regulations that the school has to apply by relative to courses taken. And the Business Advisory Board responsibility is to work with the students, work with the faculty, and work with the parents to make sure that the students at A.J. Moore receive not just an education, but receive an orientation into life after school. And the success of A.J. Moore actually comes from the students, it comes from the parents of the students that are at A.J. Moore. It comes from the faculty and the principals, as well as hopefully members of the A.J. Moore Business Advisory Board who helps the students with scholarships and other programs, introducing them to different organizations within the community as far as not just fundraisers, but also internships in the summertime and some job shadowing. The advisory board would like, obviously, A.J. Moore to stay where it is, as I think a lot of other people would. But what's most important to us are the students in the building that sits on University Park Parkway. If the students, if A.J. Moore students move to university, the Business Advisory Board will continue to work with the students of A.J. Moore, with the faculty, which would then also include some faculty, excuse me, at university, hopefully with the principal, who may not be totally familiar with the National Academy Foundation and what those regulations are. It would be the hope that those students would be able to not necessarily be contained in this building like they were in a prison or something, but that would be able to avail themselves of some additional program that they don't have at A.J. Moore. But the main reason would be that the students need to continue to get the educational and the introduction to business activities that they get now. And I would urge you, and I would urge the board to make sure that that happens. The Business Advisory Board has met with you, has met with members of the board, and you have given us the assurance, 13 seconds, have given us the agreement that you would continue to work with us, and that the main purpose of moving the school into university, the main goal would still be to maintain A.J. Moore as a National Academy Foundation, which has won numerous awards nationally, as you know. And if that can continue to happen, I think the educational opportunities provided now at A.J. Moore where they are will continue to happen here at university. And if it can't, then I think the board and you, Dr. Kane, have failed.
I would agree with you, sir.
Hi, my name is LaTanya Anderson. You probably know me by now. I'm like really emotional right now because hearing that as a parent, that makes me feel as if you have already made a decision, but you just have not told us. And I have promised my daughter that I will continue to go to these meetings to keep trying, to try to convince you that moving A.J. Moore is not the best option. I don't know how to convince you otherwise that this would be detrimental, not only to my daughter, but to a lot of parents. To me, to hear that a principal is going to have to move into another school and literally, in a way, but not saying it, be demoted to something as a coordinator or a representative is very hard to me at this moment. And I'm not saying that your budget is not an issue, but my kids' education is the most important thing to me because I feel like I cannot afford to send her to a private school. And I'm trying so hard not to move out of the school district because I'm one of those parents who believe in standing on my school to the very end. Even if it means that A.J. Moore closes, I will be there with them until those doors close. But to tell us that you're going to have these meetings because you have to, the only reason you have to have these meetings is because you know that it's part of the TAEA rules. It's not a point of that you haven't already made a decision. I feel like you guys are being dishonest to every person that is sitting in here right now and who has missed something very important that they could have been at. And I just feel like you guys need to be honest with us and tell us if this school is closing. Because I don't want to have to tell my daughter that her school is going to close.
A couple of comments. I saw what you said about that's just a big first PowerPoint presentation. What did it say? Can you pull that up there? The number one, way up there. Let's give us a little review there of what we've seen before. What, Texas school funding crisis. I guess, we've been around this for the last year. Who started this crisis?
The legislature.
Okay, about 2004, African-American senator, if anybody remembers his name, said that the legislature was trying to mess with the property tax and put in ceilings. And some articles came out saying that, yes, they're doing this, and the reason they're doing that is to create a deficit. You want to get rid of public welfare? You want to get rid of other public funding except those that involve a lot of money like facilities, bridges, roads, because people got to make a profit. But business don't make too much of a profit out of school. The guy forgot, let's see, three agencies, what's the third agency? Oops, I forgot what the third agency is, and I want to close. I know some of y'all Republicans will make up all the Republicans. Hello, Chuck, make up all the Republicans, but think about what's going on when you create this problem. Think about it when you vote in November. Who created the problem, and how can we resolve the problem? Get them out again, and let's start again. Get the Democrats out.
Well, I'm also just back on to the last two people over here. The one that got us into this problem is Austin, our Texas legislators. They're the ones that called a special session, made the budget late, wouldn't use a rainy day fund, wouldn't listen to constituents in their area. Now we have these meetings because of the problem. It's because of our House reps, our senators down in Austin, not listening to the parents. And you guys need to, when it comes down to a vote, have someone that's going to listen to the people. Okay, that's number one. But really, I mean, if we talked about this a year ago when they were in session, we wouldn't have this issue. But now we're trying to do it behind the eight ball. And they have some very difficult situations. I mean, I would really feel having you guys as the school board, because all these unfunded mandates as well. I mean, it's just not the budget. They keep on coming these things from Austin, and believe me, I was there for 2.5 years, and they keep on throwing all this unfunded stuff. And it's going to keep piling on. Now, you think this could be at the top of the priority list to fix school funding? It's not. It's going to get worse. So what you need to do is contact your Texas legislator, your senator, or when you go to the polls, in March or November or whenever it is, to vote in the people that are going to listen to you, and not this political garbage that's been going on, and make sure we use the funds that are available that's really your guys' tax money. Thank you.
I would respectfully ask you all that this is the time to either make a suggestion to the board or ask them a question.
Ma'am, I lived here for 45 years of my life, here in Waco. And racial relations here in Waco hasn't grown. There's so much problems concerning race, blacks against Mexicans, Mexicans and blacks, even whites against blacks, And we, as Latinos, have always made concessions, through the 70s, through the 80s. It's like we're getting destroyed within our own community. Like at South Waco, there's Vader that wants to advance their cause, And it's like we always have to make concessions, And it's not fair for us as Latinos that we're growing here in Waco, But we're not getting heard, We have the people here, but probably sometimes it's our fault because we don't go out there and vote, But this is the time to come together and realize that working together can bring harmony, But for some reason we want to have our own little set groups, And that's not going to help anything, And like the Spanish school that we have here in South Waco, Alta Vista. That's the only magnet school that we have here in Waco, in South Waco. And if it goes, we have to be bused to Lake Air Middle School. And I don't think that's fair because, we Latinos, we're proud of our community, but we're just getting bum rushed, In Beta, for instance, they want to take the whole South Waco area, And I just don't think it's fair,
just want to thank you for your comment.
Well, my question is, why are we not having magnet schools here in South Lake? The magnet school.
Oh, the old one, the magnet school. Oh. It goes back to the beginning of the presentation. The board, if the board does not find money for school consolidations, they're going to have to take $3.4 million out of the budget. If they take $3.4 million out of the budget, A.J. Moore will not look like A.J. Moore because out to this, I don't know that we can afford the Montessori school. I don't know where all the cuts will be coming. I would be making recommendations. But $3.4 million on an already skinny budget means probably nothing is going to look the same. So while there's a lot of concern about leaving my school alone, that doesn't mean if the board said, okay, we've heard from the community, they don't want to consolidate. They still have to cut $3.4 million out of the budget.
The schools here in South Lake are being closed, and you're transferring us to North Lake. It looks like that's what's going to happen.
Actually, I wish that we had a slide on the, because that was brought up. That was brought up at a board meeting, and so we actually pulled up a slide that, I'm waiting for the technology. Don't hold this time against me, okay? I'm just thinking here. And I'm not certain if I have it, but it showed where the schools were all closing. And actually, it's in a circle. I mean, if you look at the schools we're talking about as possibilities, it is a circle around the community because there was concern about that. That would be a good slide to have. Unfortunately, I don't have it, even on my iPad, which I probably would show. So maybe if you would email me, I could email you the slide that shows that actually they are dispersed around the community.
Like I said, I just feel like South Lake is being overrun. You know, you got Baylor that wants to advance, you know, throughout South Lake, but you know, where is it going to leave us? You know, and I don't know, it just feels like we're not being told fairly what's going to happen in South Lake, or the community we live in. You know, it's kind of frustrating us.
That's what we're here. We're here to take. I'm not certain what Baylor's doing. It's all I can do. 61 square miles I have. But we value all of our schools. We have nothing to gain from taking off everybody in this community. The board is trying desperately to make the school district the school of choice. And by cutting $3.4 million out of programming staff, that doesn't seem like it would be the best thing to do, because I think there would be a lot of resentment later on to be like, well, if we had known we were going to lose this, we wouldn't have, but then it'll be too late. So,
well, I spoke to the city manager here in Waco a few weeks ago. Me and Robert, you know, had a conversation with him, and it has to do with Hispanic teachers too. You know, the students want to, let the students come together with the teachers and let the teachers know that, Latinos want to learn too. That's part of it. That's why you're trying to, well, my time's over.
Or you get behind, you get back in line.
Jennifer Good. I just want to make a suggestion, and that is that when my son was about to graduate from Carver, I got a letter saying, your zone to go to Waco High is unacceptable. Good luck. It didn't have any information about any other schools. It didn't have any information about what was good about Waco High or good about university. It gave me zero information to go on. All it gave me was a sense of, what in the world would I do now? So what I would suggest is that the district should really work hard at finding a way to compare apples to apples so that parents can have an actual choice. Because I think if parents had an actual choice, they wouldn't choose to send their students to unacceptable schools. I think they don't even know that their schools are unacceptable, and that is unacceptable. If we knew that this school has these programs to offer, this school has TA rating X, this has TA rating Y, this has this many students, this has that many students, then we wouldn't be having this conversation, because the schools that aren't supposed to be open because they don't meet the needs of the students, I don't think they would be open. I think they would have dribbled out long ago. But when you look at the Waco ISD website, even the new improved one, it's almost impossible to get apples to apples comparisons. I need, as a parent, a place where all that information is together. And I need that for the elementary level, the middle school level, and the high school level, so that I can see if I really have choices or if it's really just good luck.
Actually, I thought you were just one. Actually, we just had this conversation because of the new website, and thank you for bringing up that we had to do an improvement. We were talking about a chart, but it actually was for our purpose, because we were having the same situation you're in. It was an identical chart for each one that would have, what about this, what about that, so there could be comparisons. So, actually, that did anything put on the website. But the things that you're talking about, that you criticize in the school about, there's not a person in this room, including the board, who would not agree with you. They have been working, I know, very hard since March to say, what do we need to do? What needs to happen for all these things to turn into good? And to a person, to a decision, to everything I've suggested and the staff has suggested, if there was a hope that it would make this district better, they have said, we're going to go for it. And as bad and as painful as this is part of that. I brought this to the board because I told them we cannot cut $3.4 million out of staff, out of instructional program. They don't want to close any schools. I don't want to close any schools, but I would be recommending to them that they at least get us to 85% capacity, because if we do not do that, there is little hope that we can turn this district around. And I know that's circular logic or loop logic, but we've got to have the money, to have the capacity to get these things fixed, and this is the road to doing that. Because if we don't, and if the board's convinced that we don't need to consolidate schools, we cut the money, what will happen? We will probably get worse and worse, and then a master will come in from TEA at some point in time and say, this was closed, there will be no town meetings. Because they will feel like we didn't do what should have been done. And that's what my theory is, not their theory. I'm not speaking for them. I'm speaking for what I have heard happens in other districts.
And I also think that people have the right idea in mind, but I think that they need to be looking at excellence first. And I think that facilities are instructional programs. Thank you.
I would just like to say that I understand totally coming to these two meetings and probably will come to the next because I don't understand any Spanish. But I would hope that the board, as well as you, Dr. Kane, when you make your final decisions, that you come down on a little personal level and maybe go to these individual schools, and the board, as well as you, open up to these parents, bring these parents in, maybe bring a principal from the school that these children will be bused to in some type of meeting before the end of school, before these children have to find out their bus through a schedule, but they have a little bit more personal talk going on between you and the board, and maybe that will help the parents. I know, as being an early child care teacher, that when I sit down with the parent, the prospective parent that's bringing their child into child care, and talk with them about what we are offering and what they need to expect out of us, it makes them more comfortable rather than just handing them a sheet and saying, these are the programs that we offer, this is where your baby's going to be, this is the time baby's going to be moved to this room. So maybe if y'all could form some kind of town meetings between each school that you know is going to close, their bus scheduling, and what's going to happen if their child misses their bus and they don't have a car to get their child to school? Is there going to be a number for the bus form that they can call and say, can you come back by and pick my child up? These are concerns I think a lot of these parents have when you're telling them that their neighborhood schools are going to close.
I think your points are well taken, and actually, I'm really pushing the board to make a decision by the February regular board meeting because of the very reasons you're talking about. We would have like a month to do rezoning or whatever might be, school might be repurposed. And then that's when the staff would go into action for doing exactly what you're talking about. Let's have campus meetings. Now, I don't know that the board members need to be there because the questions they're going to ask are the questions the board members wouldn't be able to answer. This is the questions you're talking about. I don't know that we couldn't set up times to visit. Like we would say, okay, it's Monday, and we're going to have, if Silverhawks is one of them, we're going to make certain that Bells Hill and what's the other one? No, I'm all going to go to Bells Hill. That Bells Hill is open one night. That we don't meet the parents at Silverhawks, we meet at Bells Hill. Bring your child, here's your school, let's look at this, here are the rules, and let that principal talk. I think they prefer to talk to the principal than they would to the board member.
Probably so. And I also would like to make one last request, and that would be give us the same treatment when you get ready to close the child care center. Come over to the child care center and meet with our staff and let them know too if your decision is to close us in February. Come over to us and meet with us and help us understand where we're going to be able to relocate these teen moms' children as well as the community children and a few staff children that we have. So we as a faculty there know too what to expect. Thank you.
Yes, hello. My name is Andres Olivares. I'm a sophomore at AJ Academy, and I would like to make a small comment about the blue proposal. I know that a lot of the parents are concerned for the children because it involves them from Carver going into AJ Moore. Well, from my experience, I was always a shy, small kid, you know. I was really scared about going into high school because there were so many other bigger people, and so when I got there, on the first day, I felt very comfortable being around all those other people because at AJ Moore, everyone is equal. You don't see all the juniors and seniors like picking on the freshmen or anything. Everyone is a family, and I would like to say that we are ready to accept Carver as our part of our family.
I know some comments have been brought up about schools being unacceptable. Have the board considered letting AJ Moore take over Waco ISD and that becoming just AJ Moore and letting those students choose whether they want the university or AJ Moore?
Let's not be consumed by you mentioning it. That's why we're here tonight, and that's why they're writing that. So if you want to elaborate on that, feel free to do that over there. I promise you, the board is making certain that we're making those notes. Mr. Aguilar.
You know, the good civilization is based on its education. Look at Rome, look at Greece, look at Egypt, and look at the Middle East, I think the Middle Ages of Europe. And what's happening right now, our education level's going down. I believe if it wasn't for all the brains that were imported for this high-tech stuff in Austin, in Dallas, and Houston, I wonder where education level will be right now. They'll bring it up. But what happens when a local businessman that has a high-tech device that he wants someone to operate, and no one's here to operate it. No one has the ability, the skills to operate it. It seems that our educational level is being allowed to drop. And that's going to hurt our state. California is growing. All the states are growing. We have one of the lowest graduation rates in the country. Isn't that sad? But again, if it wasn't for these big jobs, our education level would be way down here. I think you talked earlier about maybe in 2 years we'll have to do the same thing, or next year and so on. Well, perhaps our elected official here might want to enlighten us on what plans he has. Now we've heard people are hurting. Our children are hurting. Our economy is going to be hurting. And perhaps we can lie us to make it what the plans are for the next legislature to try to redeem this.
Mr. Atkins.
And we would really like for you to either make a suggestion or ask a question. No, of the
Mr. Atkins.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Frank Ramirez, and I keep hearing about, I have two of my kids went to university. I have a nephew that is going to AJ Moore. My niece went to Waco High. One of the things that I keep hearing is, I think every school wants to keep their colors, stuff and all that stuff. I don't see, I'm looking at this building, that's probably the second time that I'm looking at this building, big building. And I keep hearing, why don't we keep AJ? One of the options that I keep hearing is AJ Moore can have their own space here. I keep hearing people actually insulting principals and staffing from other high schools, so other schools that are not involved. And my comment is, what about bringing AJ Moore? And if university is not at that level, what about keep working with the university kids and help them come up with them? Why keep just trying to stay back and say, we at this level, everybody else is over here, and we don't want to be among them. So why can we as a community start looking at that? Now, bring AJ Moore here or a university, and just like the kid, the young lady that was here, why don't we make, the standards for university and Waco High and elementary schools higher standards, help the other kids. Everybody's going to say for their own powers, for their own school. I think everybody understands, especially as a parent, I think everybody understands that a lot of our checkbooks are getting smaller. Our bank accounts are getting smaller. It's the same thing with the ISD. So, my comment is, why don't we as a community figure it out? Some of us will talk to you and their kids, but let's just make it better. Not just keep putting that separation in, it's not about race, colors, and political parties. This is our kids, it's our Waco ISD. We need to make it and figure out how to make it work.
Thank you.
I'm James Robbie again. Anyways, so I'm hoping everybody got a copy of the blue proposal that Dr. Davis and I worked at. And honestly, you presented this plan, 6 to 8, I believe, though, coming to AJ Moore. And so, honestly, this is 7th through 8th grade. I feel like there's a whole reason why we had an intermediate program, 5th through 6th, was one of the reasons we were having the break at 6 and 7. I feel like that's a good reason why 7th and 8th that are coming over here. And honestly, I'd just like to tell you about my freshman year at A.J. Moore. I had the choice of going to Waco High or going to A.J. Moore. People talk a lot about racial tension, and Waco High has an extremely higher white percentage at Waco High, but I said, screw it, I'm going to go to A.J. Moore because I don't want those academies. And so freshman year, I entered the Academy of Engineering, learned so many skills with Project Lead the Way Foundation. I'm in business now, I'm that kind of guy. But I have an architectural engineering student as a roommate up at UT Austin, one of the most prestigious architectural engineering major programs in the nation. And he's learning AutoCAD next year. I learned that freshman year of high school. I helped him last semester with 2-point perspective drawings for his architectural plans. This is just basic stuff that I learned freshman year. And then finally, I was in Spanish Greek freshman year with 2 other freshmen and about 20 seniors. No sophomores or juniors, just complete gap in grades. And I didn't get bullied, I didn't get picked on. All I got was respect and advice about how to go on in high school. And so I feel like there shouldn't be any concern about this age difference when it's such a different atmosphere. I talked to Bill Ward, the head of Vanguard today, and he's not officially enforcing his plan. He wants to read all the full literature like he should. But he gave me the advice saying that they have a successful 7th through 12th grade program where it's 100% placement in college, similar to A.J. Moore, where they have a 7th to 12th grade mentoring program where they combine small groups, 3 7th graders, 3 seniors, they meet out every month. I feel like we have the resources and the students willing to help with a program such as that. And if anybody has